Charlie Kaufman, in my mind, is quite possibly one of the greatest and most inventive screenwriters working today. His ability to break the boundaries of screenwriting to deliver thought-provoking stories with deep philosophical meanings is something to be highly praised. In fact, I believe that it is his ability to embed his philosophies into his films that make him something of an auteur, a term typically applied to directors, but in Kaufman's case I feel it's relevant. So let's take a deep dive into the characters and narratives of Charlie Kaufman. Please be warned, there are some spoilers ahead. Let's start with Kaufman's 1999 screenwriting debut, Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze. In the film, we follow Craig, portrayed by John Cusack, who is a failing street puppeteer that goes to work as a clerk for Lester Core. While working, he discovers a small door in his office that leads straight to the mind of actor John Malkovich. This is where we first see hints of Kaufman's philosophies, by his mocking of the idea of the Cartesian self, which comes from ideas first brought about in the theory of dualism by Plato in ancient Greece. The Cartesian self is the idea that the eternal self, for example mind or soul, is separate from the body, and that this eternal self can leave its host body behind. Kaufman shows us his problems with this theory by punishing the character who is the biggest culprit for believing this. Craig becomes obsessed with leaving his own body to inhabit Malkovich, making him a true believer of the Cartesian self. Since he doesn't become Malkovich when entering the door, he inhabits him instead. As Christopher Flazon puts it, when Craig passes through the portal into Malkovich, he doesn't travel as the fully embodied Craig, but rather, as it were, the essential Craig, his conscious, his non-bodily self. According to this logic, Craig continues to be Craig even after he enters Malkovich. The self remains distinct from whatever body it happens to occupy. With Craig's lust to occupy Malkovich, Kaufman makes him ultimately suffer a great tragedy, being imprisoned within the body of the child of his love interest Maxine and his girlfriend Lottie, leaving him to suffer as he watches them in love. Although I feel Kaufman's philosophies truly lie with that of Friedrich Nietzsche, who states, "The exemplary human must craft his or her own identity through self-realization, and to do so without relying on anything transcending that life, such as God or a soul." Since the characters of Being John Malkovich try to cheat the idea by occupying John Malkovich instead of making their own change, he punishes them for it and mocks their way of thinking. In Kaufman's third screenwriting venture, Adaptation from 2002, again directed by Spike Jonze, it follows a fictionalized version of Charlie Kaufman, who in this world has a fictional twin brother named Donald, both played by Nicolas Cage. Donald represents everything Charlie is not, and the arc of the film leads Charlie to make more dangerous decisions to get more out of his life. These decisions are often caused or influenced by Donald, who represents a perfect Charlie. When we reach the conclusion of the film, Donald dies to represent Charlie's change into the better version of himself. A similar change can be seen in Meryl Streep's Susan Orlean, who begins the film as a sophisticated New Yorker who is slowly seduced by the candid John LaRoche portrayed by Chris Cooper. Her change stems from LaRoche's persona and the fact that he is himself around her, when she comes from a world where fake people are everywhere. Both of the characters in the film aren't influenced by anything but themselves, others, and experiences, and not by some higher entity such as God, which again is a Nietzsche belief that Kaufman shares through his characters. Further supporting this idea of Kaufman using his characters and narratives to share his philosophies come from his 2004 script for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, directed by Michael Gondry, in which again he structures the film around another Nietzsche theory, the idea of eternal recurrence, which is the concept that the universe and all existence and energy has been recurring and will continue to recur in a self-similar form an infinite number of times across infinite time or space. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it tells the story of Joel and Clementine. We see their love story unfold in reverse, with them meeting on a train after both their memories of each other have been erased. With Clementine being the first to do the procedure, Joel follows soon after, and we follow his journey in his mind as memories are erased from the end of their relationship to the beginning. This already breaks convention, because although each scene is chronological, the scene order is told in reverse. This then brings us to the last scene, where we see Joel and Clementine falling in love again, showing the idea of eternal recurrence, since Joel's and Clementine's love story will continue to happen over and over. This is another way that Kaufman shows his beliefs and philosophies, and I think that's the beauty and genius of his writing, since he shows the ideas in a subconscious way that are embedded within his characters and narratives. I feel he uses them like tools to show his message. I think that for this, even though he did not direct these films, his writing is so prominent and distinct that it becomes a term I like to use as Kaufman-esque, and he becomes more associated with them. Therefore, I believe Charlie Kaufman deserves the title of an auteur just for his writing alone, because he always leaves his mark on the scripts he writes and leaves a very strong signature that you will notice from the first scene.